So with the NFL, I think it's important to note that the NFL has been extremely quiet, a lot more quiet than the other leagues, and part of that has to do with the fact that their season hasn't started. You know, the draft went on without a hit. They were able to formulate a plan for online mini camps and OTAs, and that's all fine and good because it's good for the younger players to learn the playbook, and it's good for new players as well. Um, One thing that I do want to point out, and it's something that John Harbaugh, who in the past has been known to butt heads with the NFL about rule changes and whatnot, is the social distancing guidelines that the NFL has placed in the locker rooms and during at practice facilities. So as we know, practice facilities are going to be used instead of the training camps that they usually are at, whether they're at colleges or whatever. The problem that I have is similar to the one John Harbaugh has, and it's that the NFL is basically saying, okay, so in the weight room, in the meeting rooms, and everywhere else in the facility, you have to stay 6 feet apart. You can't be next to each other. You can't do any of that. You can't be close to other people, wearing masks and whatnot. But you're telling me on the practice field where you're probably going to be closer than ever to anyone and you're going to be talking and, you know, there's going to be sweat and fluids and maybe some spit flying around. You never know. But you're telling me that you're going to have the social distancing inside the facility, but during practice, when people are as close as ever, you are going to let them go and have no social distancing, wear no masks, going to have no cautions whatsoever. It's just hypocritical and it doesn't make sense because at that point, you might as well just let the players in the facility do whatever they want because they're going to be in close quarters anyway. And part of that, they might have to end up doing a plan where they have to play the entire season in in like one or two locations. And that's one thing that I really, really hope that they consider because I do think that, it's good that football is coming back for sports fans and whatnot. I do think that the NFL is really, really underestimating the effects of COVID and what their role in this is going to do to this virus because you have tens of thousands of people packing NFL stadiums on a weekly basis. You have teams of over 100 staff and players moving as well, and that's not even counting all of the training staff, all of the announcers from the different TV networks, cameramen and whatnot, and everything else that goes into an NFL game. You have all of that moving from state to state across state lines, and you have a situation where you have states like Florida, like Texas. I'm sorry for the people who live in those states, but your governors are not doing a good job. You have those places that are mostly affected where we're seeing skyrocketing coronavirus cases, and we're seeing them peak at record highs right now. And this is only in June. Do we really think that a second wave is not going to happen? And does the NFL really believe that they can just go on with business as usual without having anything wrong happen? I just think it's asinine that they haven't thought out some sort of backup plan by now. And it's really, really, I think, going to hurt the players. It's going to hurt the coaches, a lot of whom are older and more susceptible to this disease. And it's going to end up hurting fans who attend these games. And I don't want to try to sound like, someone who's trying to cause panic or whatever. I'm just trying to think responsibly. And I think the NFL has a role in this virus and in this country and in the world to be a role model and find a way to have their football, but also do it in a safe manner.
Absolutely right. At the end of the day, the NFL needs to be responsible to its fan base. A lot of its fan base are people who do not agree that coronavirus is as big of a threat as it is. A lot of his fan base are supporters of the president, who is not a proponent of wearing a mask, despite other leaders in his party pleading with his base to wear a mask. They are a critical voice in the battle to stop the spread of coronavirus, and for them to just blatantly ignore their role in corporate social responsibility is astounding. Raiders owner Mark Davis said to the Las Vegas Review Journal, "You can keep players from the fans, but you can't keep players from players. This could be our Achilles heel. Without some form of bubble, we may be asking for trouble." And rhyming aside, he's absolutely right that where are you going to go if you have a 52-man roster plus coaches plus trainers plus locker room staff? Even if you kick out the press, these facilities aren't big enough to handle keeping 6 feet apart. It's not going to work. Andrew?
Honestly, I agree with the man. I agree with him. Dude, football's a contact sport. Even though people are they're hitting each other, man. People are within close proximity of each other. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those sports. Like in the whether you're in the trenches or whether you're the strong safety tackling the running back after he breaks free for a 95 yarder, like people are coming in close contact with each other. And the issue with that is that, you know, they're just putting themselves at risk by being on the field with each other. You got players testing positive for COVID. Players are putting themselves at risk. Dude, football is a contact sport. Even though it's a watered down version of what it once was, where you're not allowed to touch the quarterback anymore. Basically, you sacking the quarterback gets you ejected. Um, it's still a contact sport, and people are still putting themselves at risk by playing. So, yes, I agree with Mark Davis. That, on one hand, ultimately could be the problem for football is that he's right. You can keep the fans away from the players because you can keep the fans away from the stadium. What you can't do, though, is keep the players away from each other. It's not a team, and it's a team game. So, yeah, I agree with him.
I never thought that I'd be saying this in my entire life, but I actually agree with Mark Davis. Mark Davis, owner of the Oakland Raiders and persistent in his terrible business decisions, has said something that I think all owners should be speaking on. And it's honestly quite troubling that most owners aren't. Like, if you want to even, let's take away COVID and, just look at it in a vacuum as far as a business. You're going into a business where you know that in the season there's the potential that if multiple players are caught with COVID, multiple players test positive for COVID, you could see a situation where your entire season could come to an end. And that's very troubling. And it's very possible in a sport like the NFL that's extremely contact, where you have players all bundled up next to each other with virtually no protection, other than their helmets, which don't provide really any protection against COVID. And I think the whole idea of putting it in a bubble would actually be safer for the general public, because you don't want these players going out and infecting other people while they're out, I just overall think that, strictly from a business standpoint, if the NFL has to cancel their season, they're going to be fine because they have billions of dollars in the bank. They're going to be okay. But if you are a businessman and an owner of an NFL team and you allegedly don't care about coronavirus because of your own business interests, I think that you should take a long, hard look at the potential consequences to your own business, because you're looking at it from the standpoint of, I want to make sure I get as much capital and as much revenue as I can. Now, you can do that the safe way, which is, rely on the TV revenue and, maybe some minimal fan revenue, or, finding other ways, whether it be through, advertisements on uniforms or advertisements on the field or what have you, finding other streams of revenue other than having fans come into the games. Like, while we would all love to have fans and love to be there, I want to be there cheering on my Ravens, but I can guarantee you this season I'm probably not going to be doing that because of COVID. And if the NFL's put in a spot where their season's ended or their season is stopped midway through, do you know how hard it's going to be for them to start up? This isn't like the NBA. The NBA players can have a few weeks to get back into it. The MLB, they didn't even start. They were actually fine with spring training being postponed for a little bit. But the NFL, where you have these players who need to be in the best shape of their lives to be able to play this game, it's going to be very difficult to put all of that back together for another season. You can't do it on the fly kind of like the NHL and the ML and the NBA did. That's going to end up leading to hundreds upon hundreds, maybe even billions of dollars in lost revenue for the NFL. So if they don't find a way to actually contain it, whether it be through, playing in a bubble like Mark Davis suggested, or potentially picking a few locations and finding other streams of revenue, because they're out there. There's always other streams of revenue out there. You don't need to have fans come into the games. You might not make as much money, but you're still going to end up making money. So I think that that's something that owners and, their marketing departments really need to take a hard look at.
I mean, listen. I'm just gonna interject. I mean, dude, the Bengals and the Redskins. It'll be like there will be no difference. There will be no difference. There's still no fans in the stands anyway, so the players will see no difference. This
Facts.
might help them. This might help the team on the field.